The intergalactic Coliseum smelled like burnt crustacean and industrial-grade deodorant, an odor only slightly less offensive than the politics that funded it. Orbiting just outside the blue pull of a neutron star, the arena drifted like a festering halo above a dying system. It was where civilizations proved their worth, where warriors from across the galaxy risked death, shame, and terrible Yelp reviews. Today, it was full, swollen with spectators and soaking in bets so outrageous they had to be digitized, encrypted, and given mood stabilizers. The crowd was not a crowd in the singular species sense. It was a swirl of scales, fur, plasma vapor, and metallic limbs. Each race had its own cheering volume and digestive system. One sneeze from the bleak delegation dissolved a row of foam seating. An applause from the rock-skinned growl just registered as a seismic tremor on the moon below. At the center of it all, a floating platform of obsidian alloy shimmered under gravity-controlled light. 2 combat zones were suspended in opposite quadrants, their margins enforced by drone barriers pulsing with enough energy to sterilize an elephant through 6 layers of armor. Announcers, suspended in their own oxygen spheres, screamed in 17 languages and one extremely aggressive dialect of ultrasonic. And now, by the mercy of the Intergalactic Recreation and Ritual Combat Committee, we bring you the final elimination duel of the Galactic Sniper Showcase. The roar nearly shattered the translator orbs hovering above the crowd. Today's match pits the apex hunter of the Zentari Empire, he who sees in 16 spectra, the breaker of focus, the annihilator of peripheral vision, Verktar the Horizon Splitter. A half-ton of crystal, armor, and smugness hovered into the arena. Verktar raised one glittering limb, and his body refracted into 1,000 mirrored shards. The Zentari delegation, dripping with polished exoskins and noble entitlement, erupted in a fanfare of fractal horns. And facing him, representing the Terran sphere, Eli Mira Trask. The silence was louder than the cheering. It wasn't disdain. It was indifference salted with pity. From the far end of the arena, she appeared, human, soft-skinned, quiet, unarmored save for a matte black vest and sleek goggles that gleamed like aftermarket parts on a retired pickup. No ceremony. No anthem. Just a slight nod to no one in particular. Her boots made no sound. Her shadow was late by half a step, thanks to the arena's off-axis lighting and someone's idea of drama. "Where's her team?" someone asked. "Humans don't use teams." "No spotter." "She is the spotter." The commentators snickered across wavelengths. On the lower tier, a Troglocs general huffed a sarcastic rumble. "Oh look, they sent a child with a rifle." "She looks underfed," whispered an Threk philosopher through his breath organ. "Perhaps she's bait?" Ellie didn't flinch. She walked to her mark and placed a case beside her with surgical precision. She did not open it. Above, the betting boards flared with numbers that might have been odds or blood pressure readings. The median time-to-death prediction for the human sniper was 5.4 seconds. One particularly optimistic Glock-blooded matron bet she'd survive to 6.0. Most weren't that generous. A bureaucratic drone, shaped like an apologetic chandelier, buzzed into the arena. By Article 14C of the Ritualized Engagement Charter, all combatants will confirm readiness or forfeit life and/or advertising rights. Verktar blinked with all 8 photonic orbs. "Ready." Ellie applied lip balm. "Ready." The drone trembled slightly. "Begin." Immediately, the platform shifted. A jolt. Gravity reconfigured like a drunk dancer. Wind curled sideways. Environmental conditions mimicked a Category 7 storm on the Jovian colonies. Everything was designed to disorient, to impress, to give sponsors their money's worth. Verktar moved first. He leapt, hovered, then phased into 7 mirror clones. His grav bow spun into formation, 6 energy coils charging with a familiar whine that made nervous species relieve themselves involuntarily. Ellie stood still. The first shot sizzled past her shoulder and incinerated the wall behind her. The impact crater glowed neon blue. The announcers shrieked in delight. Verktar reappeared, floating backward, his voice booming. "First warning, Warmblood. I will decorate the dust with your outline." She slowly pulled a slim object from her case. It was a rifle in the same way a scalpel is a sword. Slim, old-fashioned. Bolt action. Her hands moved slowly, delicately, as if assembling a wind chime instead of preparing to kill. Another shot came. She tilted her head. It missed. The audience began to notice. Why was she not dead? Why was she not aiming? Why was she smiling? Somewhere in the human delegation, a group so small it occupied only half a seat, an aide noted something on a clipboard. Another just passed a mint. Verktar scowled, which for his species involved changing his hue to a disappointed gray. Your reflexes lag. You do not track me. You are not worthy. She looked at him and said clearly into the mic, You're not fast. You're just loud. That confused him. Which was her intent. The Zentari champion fired again. A spread of shots this time, covering all plausible positions. The arena glowed, hummed, shivered. Ellie moved for the first time. 3 steps left, 1 half-step back. She didn't dodge. She predicted. Verktar hovered higher, annoyed. Mockery will not preserve you. The translator attempted to relay her chuckle, but gave up halfway through. She crouched. No scope. Just observation. She did not see a champion. She saw angles. Reflections. Light delay. Verktar was mirrored, yes. But light doesn't lie. It arrives late. She mapped his refraction signatures. She counted his breath patterns. She aligned herself not with the target, but with the consequence. She fired. There was no recoil, no drama. Just a sharp whisper, like folding paper. The round moved, curved, sang through invisible air. It slipped between shields, danced through gravitic distortion, and struck. Not Verktar's head. His second optic cortex. The one responsible for motion analysis. His body spasmed mid-hover. The mirrors collapsed. The clone shells popped like soap. The great warrior dropped from the air and landed with the kind of thud that ends careers. Silence. Then screams. But not cheers. Panic. In the betting rooms, a Zentari economist had a minor collapse. In the Verktar fan section, a ceremonial death poet began composing an apology sonnet. In the upper balconies, 3 diplomats tried to redact their public statements in real time. And Ellie? She stood. Holstered her rifle. Turned to the camera with all the drama of a DMV clerk at 4:59 p.m. Earth thanks you for your time, she said. The feed cut to static. Across 17 star systems, the silence stretched like dark matter. And then the real chaos began. Verktar didn't fall like a warrior. He collapsed like a misfiled spreadsheet, suddenly and without dignity. In the security feed room 5 layers beneath the arena, a group of analysts from the Galactic Combat Oversight Bureau collectively forgot how to blink. A Zentari observer coughed in binary. A gelatinous archivist from the moon of SYL tripped over its own transcript appendage and accidentally deleted 2 hours of betting footage. Who the hell is she? Asked a bulbous Troglock security official, who, until 3 minutes ago, had been using Earth's roster sheet as a coaster. Back on the arena platform, Ellie Mira Trask ran a gloved finger across the barrel of her rifle, checking for heat. There was none. Her rifle, like her, didn't waste energy. To most species, she looked unimpressive. 5'8" in gravity-adjusted boots. Lean, like someone who burned calories with every emotion but never talked about it. Her eyes, hidden beneath matte goggles, never wavered from centerline. Even now, as med drones swarmed around the fallen Verktar like guilt around a broken law, she remained still. Watching. The goggles were purely cosmetic. The sight she trusted was built from instinct, practice, and 2 decades of cutting through chaos with numbers that told the truth. Ellie didn't trust computers. She didn't trust machines. But she did trust parabolas, wind vectors, and the nervous tick most opponents had before they made a terminal mistake. She walked off the platform and into the underbelly of the Colosseum, where marble met metal and diplomacy tried very hard to smell like honor. The human delegation waited in a hallway that had clearly been designed for taller species. Ellie had to duck under a ceremonial vent dripping with something vaguely polite. Her handler, Lieutenant Lorna Pham, handed her a water pack and a raised eyebrow. You weren't supposed to shoot until round 2. He blinked early, Ellie replied. I hate that. Pham pursed her lips. We're about to get buried in diplomatic whiplash. I didn't kill him, Ellie offered, dry as a Martian salt plain. Just restructured his ambitions. Behind them, a security drone hovered like a nosy ant. It tried to scan Ellie's vitals. She winked at it. The drone promptly flew into a wall. Upstairs, chaos was fermenting. Verktar's camp was in disarray. He was still alive, barely. Neural pathways scrambled, photonic processors reset, dignity in critical condition. He'd been carted off under an honor shroud, which conveniently resembled a blackout curtain. Zentari emissaries were livid. They demanded a rematch, a tribunal, and possibly Earth's ejection from the Galactic Concord. Their spokesman, Counselor VSSYR, issued a statement so diplomatically layered it had to be translated by committee. It boiled down to, "We are not angry, merely outraged in several directions." Meanwhile, the betting houses tried desperately to contact whoever had placed the one surviving bet on Earth. It turned out to be a toothless farmer on a lunar colony who thought he was betting on a karaoke contest. He now owned an asteroid belt. The humans, predictably, said nothing. Ellie was scheduled for medical review, but she bypassed the pod with a shrug. "I feel fine," she told the triage AI. "Please define fine," it responded. "Still breathing. No regrets." "Noted," the AI said, and filed the statement under psychological anomalies, Terran. Later, in the locker chamber, carved directly into the arena's artificial moonstone core, Ellie sat cross-legged on a padded bench. Around her, the silence was metallic and taut. The walls shimmered with faint data pulses, translating crowd reactions into kinetic vibration. The metal vibrated with confusion. She removed her gloves. Fingers, unshaken, steady as the constellation charts in her head. Pham leaned in the doorway. "You want to tell me why you really signed up for this circuit?" Ellie chewed on the question like it had gristle. "You ever clean a rifle in a sandstorm?" "That's not an answer." "It is, if you know what the sandstorm was." Across the hall, another door hissed open. Enter Commander Dra Keth of the House of Radiant Violence, or as the Galactic Sports Networks preferred, the next opponent. He didn't walk so much as emerge, like an ancient god stepping out of well-paid fog. Dra Keth was Troglok's elite, 8 limbs, tusks sharp enough to slice atmosphere, and the muscle mass of a fallen comet. His armor was etched in gold-laced bone, and his belt carried the fused skulls of his last 3 opponents, all of whom had been declared missing and possibly metaphors. He stood in the doorway, arms folded, gaze calculating. "I watched your duel," Dra Keth said. His voice came from somewhere inside his chest, like a sermon being crushed by gravity. "I was not impressed." Ellie looked up. "Good. Why?" "Because I'm not trying to impress you." Dra Keth's gaze narrowed. "You disrespect the art of warfare." "You think I'm fighting for art?" Ellie said. She smiled faintly. "No. I'm just trying to survive. Survival is a weak motive. And yet you haven't killed me." He stepped closer. The room dimmed with his presence. "I will." "Maybe," she said, stretching slowly. "But I don't need to beat you." "Oh. I just need to make you miss." That landed harder than a rail strike. He tilted his tusks slightly, assessing. For the first time, the mountain-sized warrior looked, if not afraid, then perhaps uncertain. "Tomorrow," he said finally, "you face me in ritual grounds. The terrain will be biased. The odds will be fair, in the sense that your death is inevitable." "Sounds like Tuesday," Ellie muttered. He left. When the door hissed shut, Pham exhaled slowly. "You poke bears for a living?" "Only if they brag first." Pham tossed her a data chip. "Official footage. You're trending on 17 war planets. Lucky number. And you're scheduled for pre-fight rituals at 0900. They're insisting you participate this time." Ellie groaned. Is it the one with the sand bath and feather slapping? Yes. I'm allergic to feathers. Fam didn't blink. Then lie still and sneeze diplomatically. That night, Ellie lay in a narrow bunk carved from recycled lunar alloy. The walls hummed. Lights dimmed. Her rifle was beside her, uncharged. She didn't dream. She calculated. Not just the fight. The reaction. The optics. The way the galaxy looked at Earth like a joke with bad punchlines and worse posture. The truth was, she didn't care about medals or flag waving. She cared about memory. Legacy. Every kill shot was a page in a story humans weren't supposed to write. They called her primitive. She was carving poetry into the future with bullets. And somewhere, out past the belt of rings and half-truths, 1,000 military academies were redrafting their sniper protocols tonight. Tomorrow, Dra Keth would try to destroy her. He would bring ritual, rage, and the full weight of a species used to winning by default. She would bring a lip balm, a black rifle, and the unsettling ability to hold her breath for 91 seconds. And quietly, the galaxy would lean forward. The arena had changed. Gone were the polished obsidian tiles and atmospheric theatrics of the earlier duel. This new battleground was sculpted chaos, a twisted, open-air war theater designed by species who considered fairness a weakness and spectacle a necessity. Jagged rock spires jutted from a cracked terrain pockmarked with impact craters. The artificial gravity shifted erratically, manipulated by core rotors that made walking an act of faith and breathing a timed sport. Patches of rust-colored mist drifted across the field, masking thermal readings and confusing low-grade targeting systems. Which, of course, Ellie Mira Trask did not use. Above it all, tiered balconies of spectators hovered in silent suspense, like carrion birds carved from arrogance and zero-G upholstery. The announcer began, voice cracking through the multilingual feed. Today's engagement is not merely a duel, it is a recalibration of expectation. Representing the House of Radiant Violence, born of 10 bloodlines and 22 legal disputes, stands Commander Dra Keth. A bellow followed, deep, guttural, and heavy with ritual significance. Dra Keth marched into view, limbs poised, weapons fused into each gauntlet like evolutionary inevitability. The arena's atmosphere shimmered around him, the air refusing to touch his form out of respect or fear. And in the opposite corner, Earth's offering. No title. No flourish. Ellie stepped into the haze with no fanfare. Her silhouette emerged slowly, framed by dust and fractured light. One rifle. No armor. Lip gloss applied. She adjusted a single strap on her vest and took her position on a half-destroyed observation ridge. Dra saw her and snorted, claws twitching. You come to a death ritual with cosmetics. She set her rifle down gently, leaned on one knee, and looked across the chaos. I like to look good when history blinks. The match began without countdown. Dra Keth charged, and the arena responded. Spires cracked. Graviton pulses bent sideways. A lesser being would have been crushed by the terrain's physics tantrum. Ellie moved 1 inch. And survived. Dra Keth's first volley came fast, a blur of molten projectiles and arc flux rounds designed to disorient, disable, and humiliate. He fired while advancing, each impact creating a controlled chaos zone designed to corral Ellie toward pre-programmed kill corridors. She didn't go. She vanished. Not physically, but tactically, each round missed not because she was fast, but because she wasn't there yet. Observers across the galaxy adjusted their screens. Some asked if the broadcast had glitched. Others wondered if she was using stealth tech. The Zentari delegation accused the humans of illicit cloaking. A Troglocs elder broke her ceremonial horn in frustration. But the real answer was cruelly simple. She had mapped the terrain before the match. Her memorization of terrain data was so absolute, she'd accounted for every blast crater and predicted the fragmentation angles of rubble 5 minutes in advance. Dra Keth growled as he reached a ridge, leaping high with a cyclone twist, intending to crush the plateau beneath him. Ellie had already left. She crouched low in a shallow fissure, heart rate steady, eyes not even on him. Her attention was on wind shift, light bend, and how the reflection from Dra Keth's bracer hit a mirror stone behind her 3 seconds ago. She pulled the trigger. The shot clipped a corner of a collapsing spire, deliberate. Ricocheted up, intentional. The bullet's velocity changed shape and purpose midair. The second bounce caught an auxiliary drone that Dra Keth had deployed for overhead recon. The drone shattered. The data relay to his visor cut out. The commander landed hard, blindly, and stumbled into a ridge of charged thorns, another feature Ellie had never once looked at directly. "Clever," Dra Keth muttered, rising, sparks skipping off his armor. "Accurate," Ellie whispered back. He unleashed his fury. The second barrage was feral, an onslaught powered by 4 limbs and vengeance. The terrain shook. Rocks dissolved. Craters deepened. Gravity reversed for 10 seconds straight. Ellie didn't resist the pull. She let herself float, timing her breath with a 0G lull, and aligned her shot mid-air. This one didn't hit him. It hit the ground beneath him, a fracture point she'd memorized days ago. The tremor was small, but enough. Dra Keth slipped, only a step. But that was all she needed. She landed in a crouch. He roared and launched toward her, arms extended, shadow engulfing her like prophecy. She waited, then moved 1 foot to the left. His strike hit nothing. Momentum carried him past, his form crashing through the cracked wall behind. Dust flew. She fired again. This time, the bullet hit his left shoulder, non-lethal, but debilitating. It destabilized his balance and disrupted the energy pattern running through his fused armor systems. Spectators gasped, not for the injury, but for what it meant. She was aiming to control, not kill. That level of precision was heresy to most war cultures. Killing was expected. Mercy was weakness. But control, that was dominion. Dra Keth tried to rise, stumbling, his breath ragged now. He turned his head toward her, and for a moment, she saw something strange in his eyes. Recognition. "You've been watching me," he rasped. "Longer than you've been watching yourself." Another shot rang out. It struck the ground beside him, on purpose. He froze. "Why?" he asked, pride fraying at the edges. "Because the galaxy thinks Earth is a joke," she said, voice like static folded into silk. "And jokes don't shoot back." He clenched his fists. "I will not yield. I'm not asking." She raised her rifle again. Dra Keth surged forward, one final time, a wounded titan propelled by fury and shame. The air around him fractured. Time seemed to bend under the weight of his charge. And Ellie moved. Just half a breath's width. Her third shot hit the reinforced joint on his dominant leg. Not enough to break, but enough to pause. In that pause, gravity shifted again. He fell forward, face first. A silence dropped like fog. She approached, boots soft against shifting ground. Dra Keth lay there, breathing heavily, weapon arm twitching. She crouched beside him. He turned his head with effort. "You win," he said. "No ceremony. No qualifiers." "I know." Her tone wasn't smug, it was factual. Cold, clean, final. "You could have killed me. I didn't need to." She stood. The arena's sky flickered. The match was over. The crowd was stunned. No one moved. No one cheered. In the executive viewing box, a Zentari prince whispered, "We've been measuring the wrong war." Far above, in the Galactic broadcast hub, viewership numbers tripled. Back in the arena, Ellie turned to leave. She paused only once, near the fractured mirror stone that had once helped Dra Keth scan the field. She touched its surface lightly, like signing her name. Then she vanished into the mist. Tomorrow, the political machine would stutter. Alliances would wobble. Advisors would scramble to reframe the match as an anomaly, a glitch in evolution's plan. But it was too late. The shot had already echoed. The record already etched. Earth had landed another impossible kill. And the galaxy, at last, was starting to listen. The diplomatic communiques began the moment Dra Keth hit the dirt. Not 10 seconds after Ellie Mira Trask holstered her rifle and disappeared behind the mist-veiled arches of the ritual ground, 49 interstellar factions filed emergency memos marked with phrases like urgent reevaluation, unexpected sniper efficacy, and the ever-popular, we may have misjudged the hairless bipeds. By the time she returned to the human outpost, 4 shipping crates stacked with the bureaucratic hope of representation, Earth's inbox had collapsed. Aboard the observation cruiser Gentle Pressure, the Galactic Concorde's executive board was in disarray. Holograms shouted over each other. Translated voice loops garbled themselves into panicked idioms. She didn't just win, hissed HFY, whose species rarely hissed unless molting. She humiliated a war heir. She didn't kill him, someone else offered, weakly. She didn't have to, countered the Threk ambassador, whose breath organ had switched to a minor key of existential concern. Even the Troglok's representative, traditionally more bone than brain, spoke through a clenched jawbone. She defeated our best warrior with 3 bullets and sarcasm. This is not combat. This is cultural undoing. On the holoscreens behind them, analysts replayed the footage of Ellie's final shot from 73 angles, including a dramatic zoom-in on her unflinching expression. Several feeds added slow, echoing heartbeats for effect. One network looped her line, "I didn't need to," with escalating orchestral tension. Back on the arena moon, Ellie sat alone inside a cargo module that smelled like old oranges and gun oil. Her rifle leaned beside her, partially disassembled. She had stripped it out of habit, not necessity. The weapon hadn't misfired in 5 years. Lieutenant Pham entered without knocking, holding a datapad that looked slightly overheated. "You're trending again," Pham said. "There's a planet in the Afrex sector naming a crater after you. Also a cologne. Possibly a religion." Ellie didn't look up. Sensible crater or dramatic crater? Dramatic. With lava. Pham exhaled slowly, then tossed the pad onto the bench. "They're scared. Of me. Of us. You shifted the whole curve. We were the Galactic charity case a week ago. Now they think we've been pretending to be weak." Ellie smirked. "That would be clever of us." Pham sat across from her, boots clinking against the steel floor. "The Zentari want a rematch. The Troglocs are demanding a psychological profile. The Threk are writing poetry about your posture. And the Concorde just froze our peace ambassador's stipend until we explain whether Earth has a sniper breeding program." "That's a no." Pham nodded. "I told them we had a cultural tradition of personal precision." "That's also a no." "You're not helping." Ellie shrugged. Outside, the stars wheeled silently above the cracked horizon, uncaring and magnificent. Somewhere beyond them, 1,000 military academies were redrawing their curriculum to account for a variable they could no longer ignore. The human sniper. Not just Ellie. The idea of Ellie. On the Galactic Interchange Net, essays bloomed like fungal outbreaks. The Calculated Mind. What Earth snipers know that we don't. Eye Contact and Quiet Hands. A treatise on psychological warfare. Are Earthlings emotionless or just better at hiding it? Even species without eyes or hands had started adapting their combat protocols. In a private chamber aboard the diplomatic barge Consensus Drift, Counselor Visiswar conferred with his aides in tight, encrypted whispers. "She is not an accident," he insisted, coiling tighter around himself. "There is no such thing as a human accident that can see through gravitic distortions and calculate trajectory from breath vapor." The aide, a bioluminescent secretary with 17 syllables for unsure, offered a faint glow. "There are reports she grew up in atmospheric turbulence zones. That her childhood sport involved shooting moving targets on watercraft. They say she was raised in solitude." Lies. Or Earth's idea of parenting. The counselor paused. "We need to know if there are more." Across the stars, embassies sent questions. Earth sent nothing. Not denial, not clarification. Just silence. That silence became fear. Because in galactic diplomacy, a weak species protests. A powerful one simply waits. In a press conference held in orbit over Varnik 6, a four-eyed journalist attempted to ask the Terran ambassador, "What is the sniper's background?" The ambassador, a middle-aged woman wearing a cardigan over body armor, answered with a polite smile, Which sniper? It was the kind of answer that detonated silently in every strategy room from the Pulsar tribes to the bureaucratic depths of the Frond Collective. At the next Concord Assembly, the chairs reserved for humans were filled early. Not just with Earth delegates, but with observers, species who now hovered around the Terran table like scholars crowding a new religion. None of them wanted war. Not anymore. The psychological cost was too high. In the aftermath, Ellie received requests, dozens. Combat training offers. Assassin guild invites. Holodrama contracts. A suspiciously poetic letter from a weapons manufacturer proposing marriage. She declined them all. She returned instead to Earth, to the quiet shore of a lake barely known by GPS. No parades. No headlines. She unpacked her rifle case and stowed it behind a bookshelf made of reclaimed shuttle parts. Then she sat and listened to the wind. A child from the neighboring farm once asked her, "Did you really win a space war with just 3 bullets?" Ellie had looked at the kid, round-faced, barefoot, smeared with the innocence of mud, and smiled. "No," she said. "I won because they thought I couldn't." That night, across the galaxy, the phrase was repeated in war rooms, recruitment posters, and bedtime stories meant to teach future tacticians humility. Back in orbit, inside the Colosseum's high vault where records were sealed and futures were wagered, one final update was carved into the scroll of galactic rankings. Earth, reclassification, from passive curiosity to strategic threat. The notation was simple, cold, bureaucratic. But in the margins, someone had scrawled a note in old Zentari script. Do not provoke the ones who speak softly. They shoot louder.